Academica Media. From Academica Media Studios in Miami, Florida, it's Big Ideas in Education, a weekly recap of inspiration and innovation in your schools.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Big Ideas in Education. I am Dr. Sarah Boulos of Somerset Academy Schools, joined, of course, by my co-host, Ryan Kairalla from Doral College. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Sarah. Great to be chatting with you.
Great to be here. And thanks to everyone listening for being with us on what is going to be our last show for a little while here in the summer. We'll talk a little bit more about why we're taking a little bit of a summer break. But first, Ryan, I know you have something you really want to share, so let's hear it.
Sure. Oh, well, I am happy to announce that among the many reasons why we are engaging in a summer break, on top of the fact that, hey, it's summer and we're in education, so like we all need
a little break.
We all need to unplug, even us podcasters. But I have a particularly strong incentive to scale back a little bit because next week, assuming that everything lines up right with medicine and everything else, because who knows, right? But next week, the plan is that my wife and I are going to be having our first child.
Yay! Yeah. You don't have the little sound thing ready.
There we go. I'm so used to doing I'm so used to doing the horn for other people's announcements. I didn't even think to do it for me.
So I'm sure everybody listening is very excited for you and your growing family, and we're excited to give you a little bit of a reprieve from the Big Ideas in Education, so you can spend some time getting ready and enjoying baby Kairalla and not sleeping ever again.
That's right. That being said, though, hopefully we'll get back on some semblance of a podcasting and baby raising schedule, and thinking by the fall we'll be back with a whole bunch of lots of great stories, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, we'll see.
But in the meantime,
what do you want to share today?
Have a great story for this week. I have a new book, Sarah, for my Amazon pre-order list. It's going to be coming out in October, so I got plenty of time to get things good with my new son that's showing up. And then hopefully when I'll be able to read for pleasure again, the first book that I have on my list is called Free Agent Learning, Leveraging Students' Self-Directed Learning to Transform K-12 Education. The book, by Project Tomorrow Executive Director Julie Evans, presents the results from surveys and focus groups of hundreds of thousands of students to conclude that schools need to foster students' natural drive to self-direct their learning around their own interests. The book talks about how students today are already using modern technology to learn complicated concepts and develop valuable skills outside of the classroom. In a recent interview with EdSurge, Evans provided some examples of students who are teaching themselves Photoshop to improve their Instagram posts, who are voluntarily going down Wikipedia rabbit holes because they're interested about the lives of Civil War soldiers. Evans noted that about 2/3 of middle and high school students are doing this kind of self-study on a regular basis, and this trend holds across all demographic groups. So what does this mean for teachers in schools? Well, Evans argues that K-12 education needs to do more to tap into this intrinsic motivation to learn that students already have. Students learn more when they are excited about what they're doing, and schools would benefit from setting up assignments and projects accordingly by adding elements of choice and student direction. Also, Evans says that if we want to cultivate these free agent learners, teachers should see their role as that of an advisor, guiding students on their self-learning journey, rather than simply as a person who stands at the front of the room and has all the answers. For those of you who are excited about this book as I am, I can tell you that Free Agent Learning comes out in October. You can pre-order it now. Mark your calendars.
That is really exciting. And so listening to the description of the Free Agent Learning research and what went into that book, my first thought is that it sounds a bit like Montessori style education, right? Where it's a lot of independent play, a lot of independent learning. Definitely self-directed is a big component of Montessori learning. And I personally have been doing a lot more research on early childhood education. I know I've shared a few early childhood stories recently, because it's something I'm trying to expand my own, arsenal of knowledge about. And I came across a research study that said for early childhood that kids learn more from just free play than they do from structured lessons. And that is something that I found really challenging, obviously, as an educator, right? Because we go to school and we learn all of these things and we try to put so much research into the lessons we prepare for our students. And we need to really take a minute as educators and recognize how much opportunity is there, maybe not in every single lesson, but definitely when we as educators and administrators are thinking about our students' day, right? Our students' week, our students' school year, are we giving opportunities for curiosity and for independent learning and for self-directed study, and giving kids an opportunity to go down rabbit holes and look into things that just pique their curiosity for whatever reason?
It is interesting, these sort of dual trends that we're seeing in education right now. Certainly in the K-12 world, you and I have borne witness to this trend we've seen rise up in the last 20, 30 years of increasing standardization, increasing almost factory model of how we are producing learning outcomes. We are standardizing, we are measuring, because we want to make sure that our students are learning. And there is a lot of altruistic, selfless goals behind that, and that those trends have been rising. But similarly, on a dual track in education, we're also seeing the rise of multiple forms of self-learning models. You spoke about Montessori. That's a very common one. We're seeing a lot more Sudbury schools, which are very similar to Montessori, but encourage even more free play and a lot less rigid curriculum. Or even in homes, we're seeing more unschooling taking place in lieu of homeschooling, where the student in a homeschool style environment is actually driving their own education and learning interests. And it's interesting to see both of these models kind of rising at the same time in education, because they couldn't be more different from each other. And I think that what we're doing now in K-12, which is increasingly standardized, can learn a lot from this data and research, and just from what we all know intuitively, that humans, especially kids, but even all humans, we are driven by a desire for knowledge. We love to learn and we love to play, and we understand that we learn through play. And the more that we can tap into that, even at the rigid curriculum side of the ledger, where it's things like giving students multiple different ways that they can finish an assignment, multiple ways to demonstrate mastery, things like that, that put more choice into it, it could allow us to tap into that intrinsic motivation that students have to learn.
And I think even looking at the assignments or the goals of the assignment, right? The standards themselves, we are very, at least in traditional K-12 schooling, we are very rigid in the ways that we identify mastery, right? And so we are very boxed in. And we've talked a little bit about this on the show before, the letter system, the grading system, that A is a 90 to 100 and B, and what those numbers mean. And so when we get down to a philosophical level, what do these things mean about mastery, and what do they mean about what a person has learned? And how are we measuring those things, and how we've boxed ourselves into a very rigid and very imperfect definition of learning, and what it looks like to understand something or to be able to demonstrate understanding of something. And so, I know I sound very crunchy granola when I say things like this, but, more than just what can we learn from them, and I'm sure there's things that can be shared across philosophies, but what are we missing when we have put ourselves into one system, and what are students not getting? I mean, there's that famous TED Talk from a few years ago. The name of the person who did it is escaping me, but about the lack of creativity and the loss of creativity, right? Kids come into school with this level of creativity, and by fifth grade, we've beaten it out of them or something like that. And it's just such a really shocking and disappointing reality that when we standardize this much in education, there is a lot that gets lost. And some basic things we know about how humans learn is socialization, right? Socially is how humans learn. This is how social constructs are the building blocks of all learning. And I'm not just talking about academic learning, like just how we learn as human beings. And so, how do we take those experiences and those social experiences and those social opportunities and make sure that what we're providing in our very structured school day reflects what we know about what is best for our kids? And I think that's the constant challenge for us as educators.
And it will continue to be, and it's going to be interesting to see the reckoning that takes place between these dual tracks in education. And honestly, I think that both styles can learn a lot from each other. And I mean, for my own future child that is coming into the world, if I were to create like an ideal future school for this kid, it would be something kind of in the middle, something where we make sure that certain things are being learned and that, I can make sure that my child is hitting certain milestones, but also gives my child the space to play and to explore and to find their own interests as a learner.
And I know for one, I look at so many kids, and I know I've said this before on the show, but I have spent a good chunk, probably the majority of my educational experience as an educator, working with older students, right? Working with secondary students. And I got my first real chance to spend a lot of time in elementary schools back in probably about 2018. And the eye-opening experience of that has really stuck with me. And I have just had this desire to learn more and spend more time in early childhood and learn more about. I think there's something in me that wonders, at what point do kids lose that love of being in school, right? So for the most part, we get kids who are excited to be in school, who want to come, who want to learn, who want to play. And there's a moment for a lot of kids, unfortunately, where that moment goes away and school is something that's almost a punishment. And so I don't know, I think I'm making this a little bit of a personal call, right? But I want us to, as educators, make sure that we're spending our energy capturing that light, right? Keeping that love alive, and not, when we see that light go out, stop, reflect. What is it? What's happening in our building? What's happening with what we have control over? And how do we get those lights back in the eyes of love school and loving learning and loving this experience?
Well, Sarah, I'm going to get you a copy of Free Agent Learning in October. You and I are going to have a book club about this.
Absolutely. I honestly, I'm trying to, let me see if I run through my book real quick, but I actually was listening to something. I've got it on my Audible. Hold on. Oh, Free to Learn. That's what I was reading.
Oh, so I have read that one.
Yeah. So it's reminding me a lot of what I was reading in Free to Learn. I can't say I agree with everything that's being said. And there's definitely some, it was an Audible book. So I need to get the actual physical copy and read some of the footnotes, because there's some research that I have a lot of questions about. But yeah, Free to Learn has me thinking differently about some things that I things that I maybe had already established. And a big part of it is free play, free learning, and how important it is. And I think it's, little spoiler alert for what I'm going to be talking about in my segment, but just the idea of how summer has changed so much for kids, right? Summer used to be I feel like there's a lot of memes going around, how to have an 80s mom summer, right? Where you just let the kids play and just enjoy yourself.
Don't come back till dinner, drink water out of the hose. Yeah,
exactly. And so why that culturally has kind of changed in the United States. So it definitely has me thinking about a lot of different modes of education, what it means to be educated, and what learning can look like. And as an educator and as a parent, I think it has me thinking a lot of new ways about a lot of new things. So I'm excited.
That is exciting. Well, I know, Sarah, your story is also about helping students learn, but just through a different perspective. What do you have for us?
Lots of teachers and parents are thinking about this and looking to fight this dreaded summer slide, as summer learning loss has come to be known. And for good reason, right? Summer learning loss is a real issue, with some figures putting that loss as high as 25 to 30% of a school year's worth of learning. And factors such as low socioeconomic status can make that even more prominent. Susan Whitnack, Sherman Independent School District Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, says that while students can experience summer loss in a variety of topics, reading and math are likely the topics hit hardest during the summer months. Specifically, math appears to take the hardest hit as it isn't a topic that is used as often as our language skills are. We don't spend a lot of time walking down the street and having someone ask, "What's the square root of 144?" she said. So for a lot of kids, combating that can look like summer reading lists, workbooks, flashcards, and the like. But Whitnick said that one of the best ways to limit the impacts of summer learning loss is to work activities or mental exercises into the daily routine that sharpen thinking and exercise the skills they learned in the classroom, being more practical than, just these kinds of flashcard and book type activities. Part of the strategy is by working these activities into the normal everyday routine. For example, using practical math skills by having children develop a shopping list and budget for a grocery store trip, planning out meals and estimating how much of each ingredient will be needed. Another idea could be to use spatial and map skills by having them choose a specific route for a walk. While walking, have a conversation with kids about why they wanted to take this particular route. Basically, anything that gets the screens down and the mind working is a good exercise.
So she dad said, here is just writing these things down.
Yeah, right?
I'm taking notes.
She said anything where the parents have a conversation and put the phones down is helpful. Of course, reading or even listening to books or podcasts is another great activity. Even better is when it's paired with a conversation and used to foster some thinking outside of yes or no questions. Reading aloud is another great activity. Again, best when paired with conversations about what is being read. So talking, thinking, getting some kind of dialogue going about what's going on is a great way to keep the brain, get those cobwebs out of the brain and really get them critically thinking, I think, is a really important part, and practical applications of the skills they've developed throughout the school year.
Man, that's fantastic insight. And we talked about this a few months ago when we had a story about year-round school, and I brought up the hypothetical of if space aliens landed on this planet and had no knowledge of our history or traditions or the way we have done things, and we asked those aliens to build a school system for us. One, it would probably have a lot more free play in it, but putting that aside, it would probably be a year-round model. They would have no reason to think, oh, let's have this 3-month block where we're not having students in school and not having them engaged in any active learning unless the parents are taking the initiative and helping those students learn, because otherwise they're going to have gaps, and by the time they come back, teachers are going to have to spend the first few weeks catching their students up on learning they've lost. So that being said, I commend these sort of efforts to demonstrate the role that parents can play to reduce that learning loss, to keep students actively engaged. I love the idea of not just reading to your kid, which I think is pretty tried and true advice that we've been telling parents forever, but to read to your kids with context. Give them a little bit of discussion before you read and a little bit after so the students can have some context to what they've read. It helps kind of keep their mental muscles flowing. I love the idea of sort of doing impromptu math exercises throughout the day. I feel like a grocery store would be a great setting for all of that to happen. But great insight and a great way for parents to be able to just keep that learning reinforced just through the day-to-day life of raising a kid.
Absolutely. And I think that there's an argument to be made. And again, I know we say this a lot, but we did not plan these topics to go together. We really did not discuss this much before we started the episode. But I think there's definitely some argument to be made for combining these two strategies, right? And having kids talk about things that they're interested in, and maybe doing a little personal self-directed study on that. So if parents and kids come together and talk about, hey, let's make like a summer bucket list, right? Or a shovel and pail list, right? How are we going to fill that bucket with things that you want to know or do this summer? other than like, okay, theme parks and stuff like that, I really am a big believer in experiential learning and talking to kids about even things that we learn. If you want to go to the beach or the pool or whatever, or go to a park, go do this. Having conversations about what you see and seeing other people and interacting and just having different experiences and talking about them and really asking why they're interested in this and what do they want to know and helping them go down that rabbit hole of whatever it is they're interested in is a fantastic exercise. Not to mention, you're going to have a good time with your kid. And really, that's what matters, right? So if you're fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go and have some experiences, do it. Talk to your kid about what they want to learn and do and know. And if that means, at the risk of getting in trouble with every single English teacher I know, if that means you're not just reading the list of pre-approved books that was sent to you by the school district or, whoever, learn something, talk about something, connect with someone, that's going to make this learning loss much, much less prominent. And, you might even have fun.
You're going to get a lot of smoke from those English teachers out there, right? Johnny Tremaine is not going to read itself, Dr. Fye.
That's true. Yeah, speaking as an English teacher, I definitely think that there's some great things to be had. But I know that there's that meme that goes around at the end of every school year. No teacher is sitting on the beach in the summer like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read that new novel and do a diorama about it.
Absolutely.
So, there's heat to be had, but there's also other ways we can get this learning happening. So in addition to all the fantastic programs that I know a lot of schools are putting on, there's some great things that families can do together to get that learning to happen.
And to the extent that we feel like the traditional K-12 system isn't doing enough to tap into our students' natural intrinsic desire to learn and to play alongside their learning, perhaps summer can be that place that fills the gap. On a previous episode, Sarah, you had a great story about summer enrichment activities that schools are sponsoring. Yeah. So that's a similar kind of idea. And it sounds like that's an example of schools identifying this as a need and providing opportunities to fill it, which is a great development.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I think there is a big difference between what educators are trying to accomplish with summer enrichment programs and what families and kids might be doing during the summer, right? So this is not to say like, okay, taking a walk every day is all that needs to happen if your kids' teachers have identified some specific things that they want to accomplish with your kid over the summer. But I know that I speak to a lot of parents that are genuinely asking, what can I do for my kid over the summer, right? They go and they purchase these, programs or whatever is being marketed to parents for summer learning. And it really doesn't need to be that complicated. And if you're a parent that is concerned about, I don't know how to help my kid in math, or I'm not a great reader, I don't know how to help my kid with this. It can be as practical as building these activities, having these conversations. That's going to help your kid more than you realize. So I am so grateful to all of you for being with us this school year. I'm so grateful that we're going to take a little bit of a break, to be honest. I'd like to enjoy a little bit of summer. And I'm so excited that we're going to get to welcome a new Kairalla into the world very, very soon. So thanks for being with us. And thanks for, supporting us on our summer break. We hope to be back with you pretty soon. And in the meantime, we have hundreds of episodes, 100+ episodes that you can go back and enjoy. If you like, you can reach out to us using the hashtag Big Ideas in Education. We'd love to hear from you, and we hope you have a great summer.
And we expect you all to have the reading list read by the time we all come back in the fall. So. All right.
The views expressed on the preceding program have been those of the hosts and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Academica, its clients, staff, affiliates, or advertisers.